Welcome, everybody, to Evolve, and thank you for joining us. I'm really excited today because I have a very special guest who I know very well from the Pittsburgh market. Evan, thanks so much for joining us. Do you mind taking a moment to introduce yourself and your company?
Yeah, sure thing, Kim. Thanks for having me. My name is Evan Rosenberg. I'm the publisher of the Pittsburgh Business Times. I'm the guy that many of you I spam multiple times a day, probably with our morning and afternoon edition. So thanks for
I
having me.
think you're one of the most famous people in Pittsburgh because I think every person in business gets emails from you every single day, and they don't delete those emails, which is amazing.
Right, we appreciate that for sure. Thanks.
Tell us, everybody's been affected differently from the pandemic. How has the Pittsburgh Business Times how has it affected you? What has changed?
Yeah, it's like everybody, it feels like these months, these 14 months and change have gone both very quickly and not so much. I remember, I feel like all of it very clearly. So our offices shut down, like many, on the 13th of March. As things were ratcheting up very quickly. For us, we had our annual Women of Influence Awards program that was set for the day before, which would have brought, I don't know, 300 plus people together in a ballroom at the Westin. And we made the call that morning to cancel it. That was complicated, to say the least. Uh, and we sent everybody home on Friday, not knowing how long we would be out, but hopeful that the technology would work for us. And here we are. Our offices. We actually just announced to our staff late last week that we're going to go through a voluntary come back to work program throughout the summer, and then we're still waiting for some final details. But I think there'll be some sort of hybrid model that goes into effect after Labor Day. Would be my guess. So
No, that makes sense. And has there been any type of major pivots? Obviously, one pivot is the whole working from home and not being together. But
yeah,
have you had to make any other unique changes or, changes in general?
sure. It's been a fascinating time. I mean, in some ways, our business has been really buoyed by this situation, right? Readership is up, subscriptions are up, engagement with our product is up. There was a chunk of time there from last March through the summer where advertising essentially, almost dried up, right? So that was a pretty significant problem. That's a big revenue driver for us. And then, of course, the events that we are known for and that we produce. Like so many others, we have adjusted and gone into the world of virtual. It took us a little bit to get into that space, but we wanted to do it right. Uh, the Business Times is a part of a much larger company. We have business journals in 40 plus markets around the United States. And so we have the benefit of those best practices and seeing what's happening around the country with our colleagues and our peers. But we also, sort of move very cautiously throughout the process. So yeah, we've had to pivot a lot for sure.
No, and what does next look like? Obviously, in your mind, you're putting together this kind of some type of, throughout the summer flexibility, not sure
Yep.
what the fall looks like.
Yep.
What about events? Like, what are your thoughts going into the fall? I know a lot of people, at least my calendar in October is absolutely crazy. I go from Nashville to Tahoe to Nashville to
Yeah.
Boston. It's like I don't even know how I'm going to like eat or sleep. But
Right.
I mean, what do you think next looks like?
It fills up pretty quickly, right? So we're still in the process of evaluating that. I think to the credit of our staff, to the credit of our participants and viewers and sponsors, we've done okay, right? Like I would never sit here and suggest that our virtual events present necessarily the same way that they do in person. That said, in some of the programs, if we could only fit 250 people or 300 people in in a ballroom for a lunch program, now, it's not atypical for us to get 600 or 700 people to participate. So the reality is, I'm sorry, it's garbage day. You hear the garbage truck in the background, probably. I am at home today. The reality is we've been able to actually reach more people in that way, but reach them differently.
Yep.
So what will it look like? I don't yet know. I'm hopeful that we get back to some events in person, but for us, we also need some ramp up time, right? We need ramp up time to plan and prepare, but to market those events. And so, here we are, coming up quickly on June. It's hard for me to believe that we're going to be doing anything in person before the fall,
Yeah.
but I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get back to some degree of in-person events come fourth quarter would be my hope.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think more than anything, business leaders right now are trying to figure out what next looks like. And everybody they're in different situations, their workforce looks different, their events look different. And, everybody is talking about the fall, at least what we're seeing. Do you have any advice for other business leaders? Any advice that's been given to you or advice that you could provide to others right now when they're trying to figure out what to do?
Yeah. I think so. Let me go back for a second. I think what I have learned, right? I have been fortunate in my career to have always worked for people who trusted me, and you could say that I earned that trust, but they trusted me. They were trustful people, and so I very much look at our staff and manage our folks the same way, and our managers manage the same way, right? So, um, if people weren't doing their jobs at home, they likely weren't doing their jobs in the office or out in the community either, right? So I tend to take the approach of we're going to treat people like adults until they demonstrate that they can't be, and then we'll adjust. I think what I've learned about our staff, I'm not that long in the job. I'm 3.5 years in the job, and if you take out the last 14 months, even less, right? Because that's been a whole different world. I have learned of our staff's commitment. I think, I'm not sure that that's advice, but I think what we've all seen is what it is that we have to deal with in terms of our teammates and colleagues, what their commitment is to sort of the greater goal. I mean, I guess my advice would be, you know, like it doesn't have to be that complicated, I mean, do what you feel is right. Be connected to your people, be connected to not only your staff, but your customers, your clients, the people that you interface with. I mean, that certainly is something we've spent a lot of time doing, and a lot of time talking about is, you know, you know, people are available. They have been available. Again, things are going to get really crazy really soon, but I think regular touch points. I think regular correspondence with folks have really served us well, I think.
Yeah, I was at a breakfast coffee meeting with somebody this morning, and which was great because fully vaccinated, you can
Yep.
now
Yep.
sit and have
Yep.
coffee together without a mask. And
Yep. Great.
what was great about it is we were talking about having, why doesn't their company, and they're a significant size company, have some like rent a pavilion or get a pavilion at the park?
Mhm.
They have Wi-Fi, at least some of them do, and actually start bringing teams back and having a breakfast coffee in the park, and even bring a chair, and that
Yeah.
way people can kind of start that collaboration. But at least what I think you're saying is it's more about a little bit of trust and a little bit of faith, maybe
Yeah.
that, this is the time more than ever that you have to trust in the people that you've hired, or, the staff that you have. They're
That's
there, they know what they need to do. And this is more than ever a time when you just need to know that they're going to get done what they need to do. And you're going to deal with the same problems you would if they were in the office.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. I mean, I think, look, there's no question that people um, miss the camaraderie, right? Sort of miss being around one another. We've all done the same kinds of things to try to replicate that. It doesn't replicate
It doesn't.
as well, right?
No.
I mean, right? The Zoom happy hour or the all staff, right? I mean, they're fine and
Right.
they've served their purpose. I don't think it is the same. That said, I do think flexibility is key.
Yep.
I think for those companies and those organizations who, I'm an old school guy, right? I mean, I'm not today, but like I'm a suit and tie guy. That's how I am. And I think being in the office is critically important. If a company, if an organization is not flexible, if they don't offer that flexible schedule with some boundaries to their staff, I think it will be harder for them to attract talent and retain talent, because I think those who are more flexible will win the day,
Yeah.
candidly.
Yeah, the
Just
workplace has definitely adapted, and it's so funny, so many of us, especially in the commercial real estate industry, have seen this trend. Like we've seen it with
sure.
significant tech firms just providing more amenities, providing more
Yep.
opportunities to make the workplace a place you want to go instead of a place you have to be. And at least, from our perspective, more than ever, providing that flexibility and making people want to come and be
Yeah,
part of
that's right.
this team is going to be more important. And that was going to happen no matter what. This just pandemic accelerated it really quickly.
Well, and I think that's right. I think now, not to be a shill for the commercial industry, commercial real estate industry, but I think now more than ever, your physical space is critical, because you want people to be excited to come, right? You want
Yes.
people to be excited to show up. There are always going to people who desperately want to be in the office every day for whatever reason, and there will be on the other side people who never want to leave their couch, right? And somewhere in
Yeah.
between.
Yeah.
But if your space isn't somewhere that is welcoming and comforting and exciting to go to, then the
It's going
days
to be a
that,
problem. Yeah.
right, it's going to be a problem, right? Because why am I going to get up and go if I don't have to? Look,
Right.
I'm no different than anybody else. If there's 7 inches of snow, you
Yes.
know,
You're like,
um,
I'm staying home.
yeah, and I don't have a super busy morning to be in the office, I'm not necessarily, desperate to get out either, right?
Right.
But that said, I think your space and your environment will prove to be more important than ever before, not less important.
Yep. I totally agree. It's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out and how companies adapt and what options they provide to their people. And some of the people we're talking to, we're finding they're not going to provide any options. Like we're going back to work. This is
We're
the
going back to
date,
work.
June
Yep.
1st. It is what it is. And I can't wait to see how that works because I'm just not sure that the people are going to be okay without choices. And
Right.
so that's, I think, it's been a huge change. And I think you guys are going to have some amazing stories coming up about, in the future of what has happened and how it has transformed.
So I'm not quoting him exactly, but a good friend of mine, John Dick from Civic Science, right, big data company, lots of polling, lots of research. I've heard John say multiple times now, this is or a variation on, this is the greatest social experiment ever conducted on the entire world, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, and I think that's right. Like, I don't think that's an overstatement. I think what has happened and has transpired will change us and next generations forever, in a
Absolutely.
very compressed period of time. And I also think, right, this is a bit of a non-answer. I also think the decisions that are being made today by those folks that you're referring to who are saying you're coming back to work, no flexibility, like the decisions that are being made today may well look very different in 3 months or six
That's
months, right?
correct.
Like it's
Right.
not, you
Right.
know, because I think otherwise it's going to be really complicated for a lot of those companies, I think.
Yeah, no, very, very true. And I think we're going to see that shake out. And I think you're going to see a lot of changes in the workplace and what that looks like and what they want. At least we're seeing it very clearly from tenants in the market that, companies want amenities. They
That's right.
want outdoor space. They want things that were never like they liked before, but now they've become this significant priority. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see those shifts as, the whole, the CDC guidelines are changing. People are considering going back. Some companies are back.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really interesting, this dynamic as we watch the rest of the year. And, the whole purpose of Evolve is to really allow business leaders to learn, connect, and grow together. And this conversation is amazing. And I can't thank you enough, Evan, for taking time out of your day.
Absolutely.
And I look forward to our in-person conversations
No
much
doubt.
more, though. And I just want to
No
thank you
doubt.
again for your time.
Well, thanks for the work that you do in the community, and thanks
Absolutely.
thanks for having me today. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.